I love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the 54th installment of The Bobby Kudo Show. And I'm your host, Bobby Kudo.
And you may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. And you may find yourself in another part of the world. And you may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile. And you may find yourself in
Once again,
house.
we have a very special guest.
And you may ask yourself,
Please join me
how did I get
and welcome the host of the Fearless Podcast, my friend and transformational coach, Sam Led. Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
So good to be here. And I'm so glad you opened the episode with that. Oh, God. It's one of my top 10 favorite songs.
Right?
Wow.
That's good stuff, man.
God.
That's good stuff. Once in a lifetime. And that was their fourth studio album. Obviously, we're talking about the Talking Heads. And that was released, you ready? October 8th of 1980.
Or
How cool is that?
1980?
1980. And if you didn't know, David Byrne, frontman, right? I could see the video, right? The guy's, Sam, is it? You know what I mean? Like I could see him. Did you know that he got to a point where he couldn't write music anymore? True story. He couldn't write music anymore. Mental block. He actually adapted. This is why really the reason why I chose this to open the show with today is that he struggled with writer's block, but he adopted a scattered stream of consciousness, lyrical style inspired by early rap and academic literature from Africa. Imagine that. He retaught himself. Like the way his thought patterns and, you know, Sam, no one knows better than you do, my friend. We are our thoughts, right? We are.
Yeah. Well, it's the ultimate translator, but it's also, we are slave to our thinking sometimes, but we don't have to be.
Right. And here's a
You see
perfect
how
example of
special and
that,
how
right?
wonderful and how, and David Byrne, that's why he actually, if you go back 35, 40 years, probably during that time, he performed and he wrote music with Brian Eno. Remember Brian Eno?
Yes.
Brian Eno was with Roxy Music okay, I'm a total nerd. I'm a total music nerd, and my partner we're both nerds. I mean, we like to spend money on concerts. And it's been the worst year because everything's on Zoom and we can't go, we used to go to Forum, we used to go to, to the, all the great venues. But yeah, so Brian Eno was also a scatter, kind of all over the place.
Right.
Brilliant creative artist. And they created some amazing music together. And if you listen to David Byrne and Brian Eno perform, that song, they've done it together. And after that, a lot of the stuff they wrote was very, very similar in writing style as that.
It really was. And it was a journey.
Just
and
brilliant.
if you listen to the album, Remain in Light, the whole album is a journey. It's literally a psychological journey through the mind. You shut the lights off and go for a journey, go for a ride. I say it, Sam, they're not making music like that anymore. They just don't. It doesn't exist. They just don't make music like that anymore. And I think, when we take a step back, and I know you appreciate it, I appreciate it. Music in the 80s, man, coming out of the 70s, going into the 80s, there was a lot of psychedelic, LSD and there was a lot of mind going on. And people, I think, were that mind and body consciousness were kind of coming together, like coming out of the 70s. And this was the result, right?
Totally.
Just great music, right?
The lessons from the late 60s when you had, some of the great, we call psychonauts like Ken Kesey, and we packaged that, what we learned from him and his work, brought it through the me generation of the 70s, which is a lot of it was, about, furthering yourself financially and partying, and we won't get into that. And then the 80s was kind of like the incubator for all this creativity.
Right.
Prog rock, you look again at Parsons Project, and we're going on a tangent.
And cocaine.
And
lots and lots of cocaine.
Cocaine, right? Lots of cocaine. Hell of a drug. Terrible to say that. And then you had David Byrne, and you had the Talking Heads, and you had all these other bands that really were, sprouting up as a result of and the punk era, it was like this mishmash that just worked.
Yes.
And David Byrne saw that and created brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff.
And again,
thank you for opening it. That's so great.
Good. I'm so glad you enjoyed that, man. And
oh my God.
And it's like, just to really just talk about today's episode 54 of the Bobby Kudo Show, man. What a journey. And you know what? You're not far behind, man. 22 episodes in. I always tell the audience, I tell everyone and everybody, it's almost one of those things. And you mentioned it in 22 and you said, it's no good if you're not spreading the word, if you're not telling people about the podcast. And to me personally, when someone recommends my podcast, to me, that's the ultimate compliment. And my wife, I'll tell you, this is true story in full disclosure. My wife doesn't listen to podcasts. She's just not there are some people that really enjoy podcasts. Like me, I love podcasts and music. That's all. I don't listen to the radio per se. But she doesn't, and and she's a manager. She's in the medical field. She manages a lot of people, a lot of movement, patients, things of that nature. Really important stuff. So she really gets entrapped in her own thinking. And I told her, I said, listen, you need to do me a favor. I said, what you going to do? I said, you every morning you pour yourself that cup of coffee and you'll get in your car and you'll start your day. And the first thing you do when you get in your car is you hit the speakerphone and you start talking to people and you start doing business. I said, you're going to do me a favor. I said, you're going to listen to the Fearless Now podcast. I said, you're going to listen to Sam. I said, what you're going to do is, I said, when you get in your car, I said, literally 20 minutes, those 20 minutes, I said, and just do yourself a favor. Promise me. I said, you're going to isolate yourself on your drive to work with your cup of coffee and Sam, and you're just going to intake 15 to 20 minutes of just mind leveling, releasing bliss. I will tell you, Sam, at work, myself, so I'm telling you, man, right
that
now,
means a lot.
For me, work is absolutely crazy right now. I know I've mentioned it before. We went through a buyout and there's a lot of change.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling. Yeah. I produce 2 podcasts, the Bobby Kudo Show, the Disgruntled American Podcast. And with all that,
which I love, by the way.
Thank you, brother.
That's just a great name. I love the logo, and I love what you're doing.
Oh, they're great. You know what? I love those guys.
It's like it's getting your shit out, but in a constructive way. And
yes, and having a good time.
And you're having a good time. You know what?
Yes,
it's about having a good time.
Right, right.
And that's the thing. We'll talk about that. So
real quick, just to kind of finish up, and to me, I become overwhelmed. I do, and OCD, ADHD. When the mind is going like all of those windows, all of those YouTube windows open, all at the same time, all speaking to me at the same time, I really struggle. And I will tell you, I have not been able to find that quiet that I find when I'm in my truck and I'm on my way to work. And Sam, I'll tell you, you're 22 episodes in, but I've probably listened to every episode 3 or 4 times, 5 times, because it has the re-listen value. The differences between, and not that I would ever compare our podcast, but, I think that the Bobby Kudo Show is a lot of times it's a one-time listen kind of show. Like you watch the episode, you might go back sometime, whereas the Fearless Now podcast, it's recyclable. You can listen to it over and over again depending on where you're at. And I love the way that you title the episodes so that I can find what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for that ADHD fix, you have an episode for that. If it's something about mental health,
thank you.
So I give you the credit where you have this again, like I mentioned, this recycling of listening to the show, and I've listened to them, and you got me through the day, man. You really do. You get me to a piece where I can actually function. I can go in and I can be mentally, rather than be all worked up about what I have ahead of me. I've found that mental balance, and now I'm ready to take on. Yes, present. I'm prepared.
And that's why I love doing this podcast, because we all forget. We all get because we get caught up in our thinking. We get caught up in the machinery of this. It's like a cement mixer of just.
Yes.
Sped up thinking. We all do it.
Yep.
And when we're up there, we're not present. We lose sight of who we are.
Right.
We lose sight of our true nature, which is none of what our mind at that moment is telling us about what we need to do, what we're not doing, how we're supposed to do it. This person is not good. This person is good. This person, as we talked about earlier before we recorded this, it's the yeah buts and all that story.
Right.
Podcasts. I listen to I'm not a narcissist. I'd be a terrible one. But I listen to it for myself too. Yep. Because I forget. We all forget when we're caught up in our thinking in the moment, especially when we have things to do in a hectic day. It's very, very normal. And if you don't do that, if your mind doesn't do that, then it's a problem. So thank your mind for getting caught up, because it's that check engine light that's just saying, I'm sped up.
And I'm so glad, again, here we are. This is like round 2 for us. You know what I mean? And anybody who doesn't know, we were together for episode 52, You're Not Broken, which was an amazing episode. And then I had an episode with Gary, and then now you and I are back here again. And can I tell you something? And then this is, again, full disclosure, buddy.
Please.
I see the evolution in your podcast. You know, someone who's listened from 1 all the way to 22, like I can see that Sam led the personality, you know, your first couple of episodes, I mean, all about yes. And then as I see you in episode 19, 20, 21, and then 22, I see that you're out there. Like you're no longer. There was a little reservation about you before, and now I think that you found your confidence where I think you're not filtering yourself anymore. And I will tell you, for one, I absolutely appreciate it, and I think it's absolutely refreshing that you're just speaking it. You're just saying it. You know, if you're gonna say the word fuck, you're gonna say the word fuck. And when I say that, you know, people are like, oh, listen. The word has meaning. The word has definition. It has passion. There is passion in that word. And I love that you've brought that to the show, where I feel now that you're my shotgun rider. Like I'm driving to work and I'm with my buddy who's sitting on the side of me. I know that I don't have to feel uncomfortable that I use that type of terminology or I speak that way, because now I can relate that. And you're right there. It's passion. I see it. And I want to tell you, man, it's amazing to watch the growth. And I know, like if you listen to my first couple episodes, man, please don't go back. Nobody go listen. My first 10 episodes, don't go listen. I should take them down, to be honest with you. But I think
everybody, if you listen to Joe Rogan 10 years ago, or Mark Merin, who I love, and I adore Mark Merin because he's just as fucking honest as you are and as I am.
Yep.
But he's also empathic, and he also cares about people.
Right, exactly.
Whether you're a liberal or
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't give a shit.
You're human first. We are human first.
Exactly, and that's if I can, through this podcast, make my listeners see that it's okay to be really human and to not always be in a good mood and to not always put a smile on and faking it is the worst thing you can do.
Right.
Because
right.
That is you're caught up you're just as caught up faking positive, right? And I'm not talking about, you know, being critical of others because you're in a bad mood. I'm talking about like being hard on yourself and just if you're not happy and you're in the moment of just being sad, be sad. Be in a bad mood.
Right.
Because fake happiness is unhealthy in the moment as you know, being really caught up in your head.
Yeah, you know,
being really stuck in a downtrodden and anxious thought program.
And it's so funny you say that, because, you know, you think of a lot of these celebrities, the Chester Benningfields of the world. You know what I mean? You think like, you know, you see them perform and they look so passionate and you think that they're happy. And then next thing you know, you're hearing that they took their own lives, and you wonder, how is that possible? How could you be someone that's so, again, you know what, even a better example, like Robin Williams. You know, people look at Robin Williams, and Robin Williams was laughter. He was happiness. He was, you know, he was someone that always brought happiness wherever he went. And then to hear that he had taken his own life, it almost, it did something to you. It's almost like, well, you think people are happy, but reality, are they really happy, or is it just a show? And even if I'm on a podcast and I'm sitting here and I'm saying, hey, everything's great, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is great. Just because I play that character doesn't necessarily that that's who I am, and that's the space that I'm in my life or in my mind, right?
And I love that you mentioned that, because there's something beautiful about being real human. By being real human is really seeing the technicolor in all of us. That we have this thing that is that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to show your humanness,
right?
As long as it doesn't hurt other people or yourself. And Robin Williams had purpose, and he used his humor and his love for humanity and love for other people through his shtick. But we all have demons. We all have
there it is right there.
Inner critic.
There it is right there.
You can never silence it, but you can when you see that there's something way, way, way more in life, that you see it as, okay, life is a contact sport. You're gonna get your lumps.
Yep.
But with saying that is, why make it more complicated? Why make it more difficult when you're listening to all the negative head chatter?
Right.
We all have negative head chatter. It's never going to go away, but the more you see it, the less meaning it has. And with Robin Williams, he just, he lost his purpose
right,
temporarily, and he bought into the story that his mind was telling him about how
yep,
without purpose he was at that moment. But if he held on another hour, my friend,
yep.
if he held on another hour, or his wife walked into the room, or he wasn't alone 1 hour, he would still be around. I guarantee it.
You know, because we know we could talk about like people who are just so talented. Like we talk about Prince. You know, somebody like Prince, but Prince was a little different because I think
example.
Prince I think was a lot of there was a substance involved. You know what I mean? So that's mind altering. Whereas like somebody like Robin Williams, I think is completely and utterly. I mean, I don't know if there was any reports of toxicology results that he had any drugs in him whatsoever. But one is completely mind based, and the other one I think is influenced by maybe a substance. But in either direction, how do you end up in that place where you're trying to find peace and
where you feel so hopeless,
right,
you know,
right,
and hopeless, and as we've all been there, you and I and the whole world, we've all felt hopelessness, absolutely. But seeing it as it's hopeless thinking, but we're not hopeless,
right?
Not hopeless. You're Bobby Kudo,
right?
You're this intelligent, funny, heart-centered guy who's got this gift that he's sharing with the world right now in real time, in this present moment. That's what we're doing. Right. You're not, and you felt hopeless before. You felt anxious before. In a moment, that's just thinking. That's a program that's running behind the scenes in your head. Right. When you can look at it that way, without latching on to the hopelessness, and seeing that it's gonna move through you, it's gonna pass. Yep. There's so much more. The less it becomes so. Like there's some people out there that think that they have to feel hopeless, they have to struggle, they have to be anxious and depressed in order to get to that next step in their life. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. It is to me. You know what I'll tell you. And my mom, my mom, his single mom, raised two men that are doing, I think, okay in their lives. And I always go back to her, and I always remember her being in that state of mind, Sam. Like she struggled a lot with being happy. It was always about the struggle, and it had to be a struggle, and that mindset of, if I don't have this mindset of struggle, then I'm never going to succeed. You know what I mean? It was never about being happy. It was always more important to provide than it was to be happy. Right? If that makes any sense. Like she almost lost that sense of herself and her being because she was consumed by providing for others. You know what I mean? And even today, she's such a big part of my life, and we've come out of that, and she's kind of doing her thing now. And that was a real strong memory that I had of her, where she was always struggling. It was never that. It was we weren't having ice cream and cake every day. It was, hey, listen, enjoy this meal because we worked really hard to get it. You get what I'm saying? And I think if you get caught up in that, again, it's all in the mind. It's all in the thought. And if there's one thing that I've taken from the Fearless Now podcast, it's just that. It's that we are controlling our own thoughts. You just have to wrap your head around it. I think that's the toughest part, Sam, is coming to the realization that you control every thought in your mind, no matter what direction you're going in. Even if I'm thinking about going to the corner store and go get bread, I am controlling that thought. You know what I mean? The drive to the store, what's going to happen when I get there? Do I have enough change? Like all of that happens, but it's all thoughts in my head and none of it's reality. So I'm telling you, I was caught up in that stream. You mentioned bandwidth. Too much is no good. I believe that. I think, you know what? I'm a believer, like 5G is too much. Like at some point, it's too much information. Right. Right? What do you do with all of it? You could say, take what you want, but you can only take what you can carry. So the wisdom, Bobby, within you, when you see that, when you're even growing up, your mom would have moments that she was not so caught up in the struggle, right? I am sure it's not possible for us to always be caught up in the struggle.
Right.
Up here. There were moments when she would come up, I'm sure. And again, I wasn't there, but I'm just saying we're not caught up. We just don't pay attention to it enough when we're not. And so within you, your wisdom was telling you when when you're just dealing with work stuff and you're just feeling overwhelmed and your thinking's all sped up. Your mind has this brilliant diagnostic system that it's like this. We talked about last time. It's the proverbial check engine light that's going on when you're really sped up. It's saying none of this you should believe right now.
Right.
Slow down a little bit.
Right.
Take it easy.
Right.
Right. Put that on cruise control, but turn the cruise control down to 65 or 55 instead of 85. You're just going too fast. Right. And that's a gift that we all have, that we all need to pay attention to, but we don't enough. And we're all guilty of it. And once we see that, there's a chance to see that life is a game and we can enjoy the game. Right. Even if, there are plenty of, again, we talked about this before. There are plenty of homeless people that are happy.
No, you're right. Exactly.
How's that possible?
They're perfectly happy in their situation. Yeah, this is it. I have no responsibility. I come to my tent every night and I get a meal wherever I can get a meal, and I don't have to worry about anything. And they say the same thing about people in prison. There are people in prison that don't want to come back out into regular population. They want to spend the rest of their life in prison. They don't have to worry. They get 3 square meals a day, and they kind of move on with that. They read books.
And in no judgment to that. It's interesting you mentioned that.
Yeah.
There's a colleague of mine did a podcast who just interviewed this wonderful gentleman who was in prison for, I don't even remember what he was in prison for. And he was in jail. I mean, you're in prison, you're in jail. You can't, you have no rights.
Right.
But he felt more free in prison than he ever did in his entire life when he saw that it's just thought, that he saw his own well-being and his own, and able to kind of look at the present moment. He was able to relax into his own hope.
Right.
And he felt more free, and he had this kind of like epiphany in prison that just because you're in your current situation doesn't mean that you have to feel imprisoned.
Right.
You can still feel free and be in prison. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It was. I mean, I was crying. My tears were rolling down my face.
Yeah.
And that goes with everything. You're gonna have your lumps. You're gonna have your shitty moments.
But what's the stimulant, Sam? What's the stimulant? What is it? Is it, like people say that what you got that the secret word? What is it that would stimulate yourself? Like, how do you pinch yourself when you're in that situation and you're overwhelmed and you're borderline anxiety attack? Right? What's the magic word? How do you get your brain to say stop and just listen? Hold on a second. Collect your thought before you freak out right now.
Right. It's being very aware of how the mind works and understanding how mind works. Just being aware and not thinking and looking at that moment when you're feeling so anxious and uncomfortable, almost having a panic attack, is that there's something wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you.
Right.
The mind is brilliantly designed to do those things that feel uncomfortable in the moment. You're not going to die.
Right.
Physiologically, it's uncomfortable. You're clammy hands and your heart's about to leap out of its chest.
Yep.
But the more you see that as nothing wrong, my supercomputer, the brain, is so brilliant. It's telling me that I need to slow down, that whatever thinking is going on, that it's attached to that in the moment, is not to be believed, that you will settle. You always settle. And the more you have hope that you will settle when you're caught up in that moment, knowing that that's not who I am. That's just crazy thinking in the moment that we all experience.
Right.
The more you see it that way, you don't need to do anything. You just sit still with it. As uncomfortable as it is, you could be in your cubicle, you could be in front of an audience, giving a speech.
Yep.
I mean, you ask any actor, you ask any politician, you ask any podcaster, you ask anybody. We've all been there. Right. But we didn't self-destruct and die.
Right.
You
work through it. You find a way. You got it.
You don't need to, you just see it. You just see it through the mind's eye. Right. And in your mind, my mind's really going sideways. It's having a good old time. My brain is currently in tilt mode. It's temporarily, it needs an update. Right. And I know my brain will update itself, will reboot automatically, because that's the natural design of how it works. Right. And it's so liberating when you see it that way. And that's the truth. That's real truth. There's nothing wrong with anybody out there listening.
No, you're right. Now. But you know what?
I don't care if you're schizophrenic. I don't care if you have anxiety disorder, ADHD, because you're not a schizophrenic all the time. We all have voices in our heads sometimes. And I'm not diminishing the fact how uncomfortable and how much people suffer who have, these psychiatric disorders. But when you look at it as, you know what? I ain't broken. I just have a really active mind that's going to bounce around, do all kinds of crazy stuff to keep me safe. And sometimes I hear voices. Right. And sometimes it's overwhelming. Right. And sometimes I need training wheels in the form of medication that just help quiet the mind down. Right. But that's okay. Right. That's your wisdom saying, I need help. That's your inner wisdom. And that's the God-given gift. But
I think sometimes you need directions. You know what I mean? And I think, honestly, that's where you came in for me, and how quite honestly, Sam, how you've changed my life in my perception. And
thank you.
I mean that. I mean that wholeheartedly, man. It's one thing that, and I know you can relate completely with this. And that's why it's so easy to talk to you about these things. And I know the audience feels the same way. Anybody who struggles or has these kind of challenges, is that sometimes you need to hear it. You know what I mean? And you create these blockades and you create these walls because you realize, okay, I got burnt here and I did this and this was the outcome. But when you get words of wisdom or direction that actually bring you peace, you learn that too. And it becomes, you know what, I'll tell you what, 10 episodes into your show, it now, for me, is now a habit. Like, I look forward to the next episode. I want to hear what you got to say next, because they're all relatable. One episode kind of works into the next. And you know what? If we could just take a step back and talk about episode 20, and I actually, like I said in the show notes, and to me, episode 20, really showed, I think it was, not that, Sam, again, your character leaps and bounds, sir. I mean, the fact that you give so much just to help others is one thing. But when I listened to episode 20, it touched me, because I know personally, like, I deal with people all the time. People deal with other people, and no harder profession than dealing people on a psychiatric or even a medical level, like, if we could say that. You know what I mean? Not that we're not doctors. Neither one of us are doctors here, but but when you're dealing with someone on a psychological level, it's very easy to be complacent and say, you know what, I don't like what you're saying to me. I don't like the way that you're treating my staff. We're no longer going to do business with you. You had a great story. I like to play a small clip of this, and if maybe you could just kind of jump off of a situation that you had with a client, right? We'll call it a client.
Sure.
And I think there's a couple of things going on here. One, I think it speaks to your character, sir, first of all, and it speaks to how seriously your courage. And the idea that you're not only talking a game here, but you stand behind what you say. Everything you say, it's just words. And this was a perfect example of that. So just real quick, everybody, give us a quick listen.
I had a client many years ago, came into the office. He was really struggling. He was anxious in his head all the time. And he came in, initially he wanted to quit smoking, but his wife a little bit later told me that he was having chronic pain, and he was just kind of upset because he had to retire after working for the auto industry for over 30 years. And he was just lashing out at everybody, screaming at everybody. And it was just horrible to people. And most of all, horrible to himself. When he came into the office with his wife was this lovely, very subtle woman in probably her late 50s, early 60s, with her husband. The husband, as soon as he walked in the office, started saying things about me, about how I was dressed. He wasn't very nice. In fact, he was really good at putting me down. I guess I'm a sensitive bloke, but I can take it okay. But the way he did it, he really hit home to some of my insecurities. He really kind of triggered me. And I almost got sucked into his tirade. He wasn't happy to be there. In fact, he didn't believe in the work that I was doing. He didn't believe in the laser that I was using, or believe in what we were going to do together. And so I had no expectation that my coaching and the acupressure work we were going to do together was going to be helpful. In fact, I was going to fire him as a client because he was really not nasty to me. And part of me was really hurt by the things that he said to me, and I'm not going to repeat them because it was completely unacceptable. Now, knowing what I know about the nature of thought and thinking, if I didn't really see it as he's just caught up in his crazy mind, that he's really suffering, if I took the bait, then I would have destroyed the opportunity for me to do some really good work with him.
And I want you to take it from there. I wanted to set.
Oh my God! I'm going to turn red.
I'm telling you, I wanted to set the stage, and I wanted people
I was rambling.
No, man, it's just you set that up, and you really think about it, and the thing to have someone come in and say such nasty things to you, and say some derogatory things to you, just and they don't even know you. It's one thing when someone knows you and they make a comment, but when someone doesn't even know you and they're very nasty to you and they're basing things just on how you look, how you speak, and you appear, that's very, to me.
Well, yeah, it was one of the hardest things as a person. We have this thing called ego.
Yep. To
protect us. It's we have this ego that we think is pulling the strings behind our thinking, behind our brain.
Right.
When we know that that we have something way beyond that. And when he came into the office, I didn't see an angry, scared, anxious guy. I saw a guy that, like all of us, got caught up in some really crazy conditioned thinking about how his life has been taken away from him, when he has this whole next chapter of his life.
Usually when people retire, right? That retirement is a big deal for people, right? I mean, the idea.
Well, he worked for Ford Motor. He worked for he had a big job for over 30 years, and that was his identity.
Yeah.
But when we see that our identity is always there underneath all the thinking we have around our identity, that it's not
a nameplate on a desk. It's inherently who you are.
it's who you are and who all of us are as a collective is good, is kind, is loving, is hopeful.
Yep.
And I'm not, and that's what, again, I mentioned, this is what all the great sages saw. Jesus, Buddha, you name it. They saw something. That's the secret. If you talk about the secret, them getting present and seeing their true nature of everybody, even people that have done harm. Like when you read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and the way he describes him loving his captors, him showing respect and compassion for these horrible Nazi, commandants that were systematically beating and torturing people. So that's what I saw in this guy. Like this guy, it was, for me, it was very difficult because he was, he was loud and he was just angry and he was not nice to his wife in front of, I could have easily just
Yeah, exactly. But you didn't. You made a choice. You made a conscious choice to put your best foot forward and give this person an opportunity.
Yeah. And then why I do this, because I knew it was nothing about me, nothing about what I was doing. And it never is, ladies and gentlemen. It's never about you. Someone's, throwing vitriol and at you. It's never about you. And you all know that. A lot of you all know that we all get caught up in the moment. We get sucked into people's nasty vitriol sometimes. And once you see it is not personal, is as difficult as it is to sit there and let someone unload on you. That doesn't even know you, even if they do know you, they're suffering.
And you've been doing this,
suffering.
What you've been doing this about 20 years, 20 years?
I started coaching officially 2006.
All right.
Late 2006.
And how many times has someone brought someone else in as a client? You're right. I would think that'd almost be odd. Like I would imagine that in your business that if I wanted to come see Sam and I needed some consulting, that I would bring myself to see you. And here was a situation where the wife brought him in hoping that, hey, maybe there's some light. Maybe we can get this, maybe we can just soothe the bear,
she was
right?
Desperate. It's funny. She was desperate and she comes to me. My mind thinking, what is she thinking? I'm not a psychologist. I'm a therapist. Thank God. I don't want to be. And therapists and psychologists have their place. And there's some wonderful therapists and psychologists. Right. But I see people as not broken. Because I see people that they're just one thought away from their true nature, which is being happy about being alive and being happy about being who they are. And that's not some kumbaya stuff.
Nope.
We always, once we just look at our thinking for what it is, instead of taking it on as scripture and the truth. Whether our opinions are strong or not, however our life has turned out, our circumstances, when you see that it's not our circumstances that make us feel anything. It's coming from the inside. You could be, again, the example with the homeless guy that's sick, is old, and is walking on the street. No one wants to be him. We all seen him walking down the street, but he still has moments of happiness. So how do you explain that? I can't explain it, but I can tell you because he's in the present moment.
And Sam, you and I, both podcasters. Again, you're 22 episodes into your podcast. I'm 54 into mine. And I always say to myself, gee,
you're kicking ass.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, what's the end goal?
I'm a newbie, man.
What's the end goal here? I tell you what, you work hard at these things and you say to yourself, collectively, Sam, I look at you and you've been consulting, you're a consultant, and that's really been the driver, and you've been doing this work, and now you bring in podcasting. And so to bring this all together, what's that moment in your life where you say, okay, I am doing exactly what it is I want to do, and I just want to move forward in this direction?
Well, I would love to do this full-time podcasting and find, just like you, this is my passion. Since I was a little kid, we talked about this in the last episode. I wanted to be an air jock on a rock station. This is even better because it's my rock station.
Right, exactly. Your rules, right.
And it's Bobby Kudo's rock station. He can remember the deep tracks, like deep cuts,
it was funny.
The B-sides.
I mentioned to you I wasn't feeling really good. I was a little under the weather, and I sounded like
your voice sounds even better.
I tell you what, I sounded like Wolfman Jack. I was like, hey, Wolfman Jack. You remember Wolfman Jack? I mean,
yeah, of course. American Graffiti, but you sound like Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to listen to Scott Muni.
Yes.
I think every one of the greatest air jocks or disc jockeys, they had a proverbial head cold, or they were always bronchial.
Yes, the
more bronchial you are, the better of a distance.
Yeah, because you get the lows. You get the really lows down there. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. So that's just really it, is getting to that goal of podcasting, doing it full time, getting a sponsorship, finding that niche.
Well,
right?
I'm also writing. I think, and I'm not going to give away the book, but I just I completed a book of manuscript, and it's at the editor. And
good for
it's
you.
About something tragic that happened to me. You know, that you and I will talk about in another episode. I haven't really talked about on my podcast because I didn't know how to introduce it. It's something that's it wasn't a happy time, and it's something that really was a true test of my resilience.
There you go.
My family's resilience, and that we all have inner resilience within us. All of you, you, and you, and the nosebleed
and you in the nosebleed seats. Yep.
We all have that,
and
so the book, and I want to do more. I want to do more webinars. I've done a couple.
Yep.
I want to really join forces with other coaches. I've talked about it. I've had conversation. My partner's a coach, a brilliant coach.
Yeah.
And really kind of expand into the Three Principles community more. In fact, there's actually a huge Three Principles conference on Zoom that I was watching UK time with their California. We're 8 hours behind them.
Sure.
I was watching early this morning with my partner on Zoom. I want to be part of that community and really be able to spread my helping tentacles out. Making a living doing something you love and helping others is kind of, for me, the best feeling in the world.
Well,
and I don't mean to be,
sir, you have every ingredient is there. Like, you've got every ingredient.
Thank you.
And I think success for you, my friend, is inevitable. I just think it's a matter of just a little bit of time.
You too.
But other than that, man, when you offer what you're offering, and it's for free, man, I tell people all the time, just go and listen. It doesn't cost you a dime, and it's really going to change your life. What you're offering to people is life-changing information. It's like a roadmap. You're literally providing a roadmap with a treasure at the end. If you just listen, clear your mind, and again, the great sages of the world, the Sid Banks, and that message that again, it's the mental health, right? It all lies. It's within our consciousness. Like that's where it's all right up in here. And if you could just find that roadmap, and if you can get those directions, then you can find it. I mean, I would have gone my whole life, and I would have never had this mindset or this thought process if I didn't meet you, if I didn't have the opportunity to actually ingest your knowledge, man. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I wouldn't be doing this right now. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, where would the Bobby Kudo show be? Like, because it's all about, to me, it's all about the value of life and what you bring to the table as a human being in all aspects. Because I always believe that you have to be happy. You cannot make other people happy if you're not happy yourself. You've got to find that inner happiness, right? So to me, I won't lie to you, man. I was losing that. I was getting angry. I was getting bitter because it became a situation. It was me saying, why me, man? Why do I always end up in the same spot over and over again? Like, I kept saying to myself, it can't be everybody else. It's got to be me, because I always find myself in this same spot. And I found that it is me. And the reason I am here is because I have to be responsible for where I am in life.
You ever heard the saying, sometimes our frailties, what I mean by frailties, things that we get caught up in and we don't see, how wonderful and how talented and how capable we are as human beings, that we have this growing edge. And sometimes that growing edge, sometimes our frailties open doors for us. And seeing, but when it comes to my podcast, my work, and what you're doing, we could tell our audience, listen, and it's going to change your life. But more importantly, what happens with any personal development program, any personal development podcast, or anything that's out there that you get turned on to, is that listen to all of it without judgment. Take off your judgment cap, because we're all guilty of it. I remember when I first was introduced to the Three Principles, I went to my first 3Ps conference in Marina Del Rey 2.5 years ago with my partner. I'm thinking, what is this sanctimonious crap? What is this personal development, Tony Robbins woo-woo stuff? I was judging it. Innocently. And so the less we can take, if we can take off the judgment cap when we're really hard on ourselves in the moment, because you're all, when you're present, you're present.
Right.
When you're happy and present and hopeful, you're there, and we all drop into that field, that real liminal space of opportunity, or when we're feeling grateful, we're just feeling good for no reason.
Right.
Nothing outside of us is making us feel good. We're just feeling good for no reason.
Right.
Where life feels like it has potential, right? But we're all going to go back up into our head. Right. When you can just say, you know what, that's just part of the game called life, part of the game called being human. Yep. We all have this thing called our humanness that we're gonna get wrapped up in some nonsense. The less you judge that when you're caught up, when you're feeling like shit, when you're feeling overwhelmed with work or whatever it is, when you just say, you know, I'm just having a really human moment right now, the less it will have a grip on you, you know? Right. And those frailties that we all have, if we really listen to them, if we allow them to, without judgment, see them, the more it will open doors for us. Like with me, with my podcasts, there are a lot of podcasts out there that are just open-ended rhetoric shows, opinionated shows, and there's nothing wrong with that. Right. And I could have done one just like just like one of those, like a political podcast, whatever it is. But I realized that there was this golden egg of opportunity where I can share my experience with my own, mental health issues with ADHD and OCD and anxiety. It's perfect, right? Yes, and be able to be helped and able to make people see that they're not broken. You're not only the hair club president, but you're also a client. That's the right. I mean, it's right. Right. Seriously, right? And honestly, me too, man. Like I always think to myself, like I would never deliver a message that I didn't believe in my heart was how I felt. That's right. And I always feel that I want every episode to be able to give something back. If you're offering me an hour, 2 hours of your time, I want you to walk away from that and go, wow, I never thought of that. Or, wow, that's a really different way of looking at that. I never want to, and I know you feel the same way. Like, look, I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing information that I know, and it's been helpful to me, and I'm thinking that maybe this might help you. If I tripped and fell, I'm going to tell you, hey, listen, that's where I tripped and fell. You might want to be careful over there. I'm willing to share that information. And I think to your point, Sam, what you offer, I mean, again, out of the millions of you and I, bro, we're in a fishbowl of a bazillion podcasts. A bazillion. I mean, everybody and their grandmother has a podcast, but there's something different, man. There's just, when it's one thing to say words on a microphone, but it's another thing to deliver energy. And I honestly believe that's what we're delivering. We're delivering energy. When you can stimulate the electrical impulses to the brain, I believe you're delivering energy. You know what I mean? When you can make people smile, when you can make people laugh, when you can make people look at themselves from the inside and find that there are better ways of dealing with certain situations. And look, stop beating yourself up. Stop being so hard on yourself. Give yourself an opportunity to trip and fall and get back up again. Just because you scraped your knee doesn't mean you just can't, look, wipe it off, put a Band-Aid on it and get up and do it again. You just can't lay down, and I used to use the expression lay down and die, but it almost seems like even now, Sam, in this current climate and kind of shifting gears a little bit and living in the environment that we're living now, a lot of people are kind of like just giving in. I see two sides. I see people either giving in or people are just over the deep end. Like, I am all done. I'm not doing this anymore. And then you get the other side of the people going, I'm just going to lay here and just wait until somebody tells me to get up. So it's these two dynamics, and somehow you got to figure out, listen, how do we get back to what normal, right? What's normal? Well, it's interesting. And when you just did that, I'm just gonna lay down and whatever they tell me, it's like they do what they tell me to do, and then I'm just gonna see what happens next. I mean, both of those mindsets, there's nothing wrong with either one of them. Right. That's just a choice. It's, you can, God, what was the name of that band that we grew up with? Do What You Told You. It was Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine. Right. You can go down that mindset. Yes. Which I think there's a lot of suffering in that because it's angry, and I'm not poo-pooing. It's a great song, by the way. No, right. You go down that mindset and fine. Right. If you go down a mindset of what's possible, to help, make some changes in the world. And again, I'm not kumbayaing it. And you're in your own personal world, step by step, in every moment of your life. In this moment right now, what we're doing right now, this very minute on a Sunday late morning, early afternoon, your end. Yep. That's all it takes. And the other side, the other mindset is you can go down that road too, where I'm going to do whatever they tell me. Right. And that's fine. Right. Look, no judgment, no judgment at all. Right. It all comes down to what you see is on offer in your life or what you don't see is on offer, and that's a choice you have every every one of y'all have. You can look at it as I got to pay my bills and I got to go to work every morning.
Right.
And I got to do this, that, and the other.
What's the carrot? What's the carrot, right? What's the carrot? What's that driver?
Carrot, right, exactly. But what about if you could do all that and do what you love?
Right.
Or maybe you don't love what you do, but when you are really present in the moment and you're sitting next to a colleague and you're just having a real quiet moment, sipping coffee at 9:00 in the morning on a Tuesday, and you just had a call with a client, or you just whatever you do for a living, and you're just sitting next to your coworker, and there's a quiet moment, and you can hear the computer whirring, or the water cooler percolating, or whatever, wherever you work, or if you work from home and you hear your wife in the background doing whatever she's doing. When it's quiet, you'll see what I see. When it's quiet, you see that there's this space. It's a gift that we all have called just really being conscious in the moment. Whether you work at ShopRite or a supermarket,
right,
or you are the CEO of a blue chip company,
right,
we all can get quiet, and there's something wonderful that happens in that quiet moment. We just don't pay attention to it enough. We keep it that simple. Keep things really simple, man.
Right. But there it is. That's the secret. It's finding that simplicity in the chaotic. You know what I mean? It's somehow being on, the freeway and finding inner peace somewhere, or is it sitting there, and listening to, the Fearless Now podcast and finding that moment where the world is going on around you, but you've got this silence above, this bubble just of your own, where you can still find that.
Yeah.
You can still find that moment of just sanctity, where maybe you turn on the Bobby Kudo show and you're listening to an episode and you take that journey. When I first started the show, Sam, and I would love to, at some point, I want to get back to the original format of the show. And the show was really about history, and it was about the things that were going on around us, and it was about our evolution as a society. That's really that's what drove the show for me. Talking about the music, the history, the things that were happening in the world, the bookmarks, right? And that was the inherent creation of the Bobby Kudo show. And I always felt like, to me, when you look in my studio and you look around, there's a little bit of everything. And to me, everything in this room represents a point in my life that was either dynamic or drove me in a direction where I find myself today. Sam, if you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be sitting here with you, almost 3,000 miles away, and recording an amazing podcast and having this type of conversation in dialect, I would have been like, no, that's probably not going to happen, right? But here I am. Here we are. Here we are, man. Somehow the universe is aligned, and here we are, and we're delivering this amazing message to everyone to say, hey, listen here, take it, do with it what you will. But we can, your life can be better. And again, like you mentioned, even the homeless person who's totally satisfied with their life, it doesn't mean that you can't be happier, right?
Right. But even if you're not satisfied, even if, say, you're in debt, you have cancer, and your dog has died, and you're alone. And which is the worst. Let's paint the worst possible scenario.
Yep.
Naturally, throughout that poor soul's day, he gets present in the moment. Thinking about it right now, I'm thinking about it. I'm getting anxious thinking of that gentleman who's got all these things going wrong with him, and that's the secret sauce.
Yep.
When we just drop into the moment without even thinking about dropping into the moment, because the more we think about trying to drop into the moment, we see that's thinking, that's not
right, being
consciously in the moment,
right? And you're getting further away from finding that peace. I mean, it's just right. You create
and you don't need to find it because it's right there.
It's right there. It's right there.
Because we all do it during the day. We all, and that's what you talk about all this. And if you, ladies and gentlemen, you have to see Bobby Kudo's studio because it's pretty damn awesome. He's got kind of, what would you call it? Like little,
you know what? If I had to say a history of pop culture, it is literally pop culture.
What do you call them? I'm having a brain fart right now. Memorabilia.
Yes.
But it's those little. They're all symbols.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Bookmarks of history, of things that have gone on in your younger past, my younger past.
Absolutely.
And they're all door openers. Think about that. Because at one point when you were actually experiencing that moment, say when you watched a Batman rerun, I'm looking because he's got this very cool, the original, what's his name?
Adam West.
Adam West.
Yep.
The show, it was at Nickelodeon. No. Well, no, it was on. I don't remember.
It was, I think, TV 38. I think it was like TV 38. TV. Yeah. Right.
Before there was cable.
Yes,
after
before.
School. We'd come after school, like at 3 o'clock. We
Watch, absolutely.
You know, and I had the Batman. I mean, this is like the show came out before our time, but
sure,
it was still in syndication, I'm sure.
Yep.
And we'd come home and watch that show. And then we'd get really present and watch that show. And we saw a possibility, whatever that was. I wanted, I was Batman and Robin for Halloween when I was 6 years old.
There you go.
So all those symbols behind you in your studio are all reminders of things that are possible. You know, you can watch Batman as a little kid and sit in front of the TV ears that we had before we had cable boxes and sit in the basement of our house like we had and just sit there and watch it and you get really present. And then it opens up a door.
I'll tell you what.
You're not even aware of it. It opens up a door.
Absolutely. Every one of these pictures I have on the wall to me is a gateway to another dimension that I experienced in my life. It really is. When I look up and I look at something, it immediately sparks that thought in my mind. And I go back to that. And they're all great moments. And do you know what? To you, it might be something different. This is what it is to me. This is where... This is my sanctity. This is where I sit and I try to deliver the best message I can deliver. You know, I find peace here.
It's the Bobby Kudo sanctuary, and it opens a door to creativity.
It does. I think it does.
100% does.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at Freud, and I don't want to go to Freud.
Yeah.
There's a picture of Freud's office, his psychiatric practice in Vienna in like 1895 or whatever it was, and he's got these little I don't know, they're like dolls, but they're made out of, what do you call it? Like his wooden soldiers. He's got all these kind of weird like elephants and archetype things,
little figurines everywhere.
Yeah. And it's very, very strange.
Yep.
All over his office, by his patient couch. But those are all openers, symbols of Freud's creative openings. We all have openings. We all have subtle reminders, but they're all inside. We just create physical representations of them on the outside, like you have behind you. And Bobby's studio is awesome. I mean, I want to. When I
listen, when you
North
come,
Carolina,
absolutely, you're going to be sitting in the chair over here with me, sir. Absolutely,
it's so
absolutely,
cool.
absolutely.
And so those reminders, if we pay attention to it, gets us present. We don't need that to get us present because it's all there on offer when we are present.
Yep.
We can relax into hope. We can relax into what our next step is. We can relax into. And when we feel hopeless, we can let go of hope because it's like you don't have to be hopeful. You can be hopeless and still relax into the present moment.
Right.
But once you let go of the controls, and you're just watching Batman and you're just being Bobby, just having a good time watching Batman, or watching a Sox game, just with a beer or whatever by yourself. Those moments when you drop out of your thinking in the moment. Those are the golden moments. It's like the golden hour. Right. That's a holy moment where you can start writing your book.
And just enjoying being with yourself. I'm with me. I'm hanging out with me. I like me.
Hanging out with you. Yeah. And that's where you can think of the next podcast episode to record or the next job that you want to, or, where you want, let's face it, we all need to make a living, but you can still make a living and enjoy what you do. And even if you're doing what you don't, even if you're doing something to make money,
out of need,
that wasn't your first choice,
you
still can find, the openings.
Yeah. So listen, real quick, speaking of Batman.
Yes.
I want to ask you this. I don't want to put you on the spot. But if you could record a podcast with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
Okay. I know. I thought about this earlier because you sent me the question. Yeah. And I was just kind of...
It's tough. It's so tough. It's really... Because you know what? Like even my wife and I were talking about it today. She's like, who would you pick? And then like there was like a bunch of different names that just came to my mind, like, boy, I think like people like Steven Tyler, who I think have a great story to tell. You know what I mean? Like, wow, imagine having Steven Tyler for like 2 hours, unedited and just have him telling you all about the amazing experience that Aerosmith went through. Imagine sitting down with, say, somebody like Jimi Hendrix, who I believe personally was connected at another level. I mean, granted, it may have been a little LSD in there, but nonetheless, he was
interdimensionally.
Exactly. And I think to myself, gee, who would it be? Like, who would you sit with and who would you have that conversation with?
Okay, I got it.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to pick two.
All right.
I'm going to pick one that's non-music related.
Yeah.
Okay, because he grew up in a time, it was like in Europe and when he's American, and he was, I'm not going to give away the name just yet.
Okay.
When he went to Paris with all these other brilliant writers and creative types and artists and sculptors, he was at the right place at the right time in that moment. And what he gained from that experience after he wrote these his first two brilliant novels about World War One, I just gave it away. It's Hemingway's one.
Oh, that's cool.
He's such a nut.
That's cool.
He's such a nut, and he's because I love I love reading and
Yep.
I love writing. His command of the sentence and the sentence structure is beyond
powerful.
brilliant.
Yeah, very powerful.
I would
very
say
powerful.
that's one of them.
Yep.
Very powerful.
Wow, that's
Hemingway
a good
would
one.
be
I
one
didn't
of
even
them.
think of that. That's a great one.
I was going to say Vonnegut too. But I think Hemingway, because he saw post World War One. There was this time of very short prosperity before the Great Depression and before we went into the bowels of World War II. And
right.
There was this creative period, very short envelope of time where some of the greatest writers came out, some of the greatest artists like Jean Cocteau and Dali and Miro, and I can go on and on and on and on.
Right.
That we'll never have again. And just to tap into his creative process, and him wanting to, him talking about hunting buffalo, but more importantly, it would be him. I find him fascinating. That would be one. Number two, let's go. I have to go to music.
Sure.
I could say Billy Joel because
that's a cool interview. Even like
that'd be a cool
Elton
interview
John.
because he literally took his circumstances and did not let those circumstances dissuade him from becoming one of the greatest musicians that we know in our generation or generation before, like Steven Tyler did and Aerosmith.
Yep.
And the reason, he grew up in a household where his father left him, and he was being grown up by a single mother, how you grew up, right?
Yep.
And was able to take that whole difficult situation and create this brilliant. He saw the brilliant talent in him, and he was able to make something out of him. And his music defined a generation. I got to say, Billy Joel.
How about Morgan Freeman? Huh? That'd be a cool one too, right?
He's an open book. He's
right.
mysterious.
Like a Denzel Washington. Like I think people like that. Just the men are few words, but the words that they say are very powerful. They mean what they say. And I say, but if you ever have an opportunity to talk to these people, imagine what those conversations would sound like. Imagine Sam, you and I, obviously, we connect. We have fluidity. We speak so well together. Imagine having this type of conversation with somebody like a Morgan Freeman as well, where you're having that type of fluid conversation. Imagine the creation, right? Imagine the creation. How amazing that would be. Just tapping into that.
And more importantly, what door it opens for yourself.
Right.
Because I always finding your creative tribe, finding your tribe, we talk about, we all got to make a living. We all got to pay the bills.
Yep.
You still can find your work tribe. You can find your creative tribe. You can find your friend tribe.
Yep.
There are these different tribes. If you allow yourself to and not fight it, you can find your tribe by finding your passion. And you do that, by getting present and really seeing who you are beneath the cog and, the machinery of how stressful life is and how unpredictable life is and how terrible life. I can go on forever. And that's why it's interesting. After the election, I stopped watching all news. Yeah. I stopped. It was such a liberating, and people say, well, you need to be, informed. I said, how can you? They're informing me of a perception that they're trying to paint for me.
Exactly.
They're a point of view.
Yes.
There's no such thing as unbiased news anymore.
Right.
There's,
right.
Tom Brokaw and Walter Cronkite are no longer with us on the news. So
Right. And that's why we created the Disgruntled American podcast. It's so funny you bring that up. That's truly.
I was going to segue to it.
That was really it. That was the reason. That's why we created that, because it was a situation where none of it, like what CNN says and what MSNBC says and CBS says and Fox says, is everybody's got their own tone and what they're saying. We're like, hey, wait a minute. Let's tell the truth. How is this affecting the common American? The guy who's going out there, the woman who's going out there every day and putting in an honest day's work. How are they being affected by this? Is it all this noise? And the truth and reality is no. It's the noise that they create on TV. And unfortunately, you have a generation of people out there that's all they know. They only know what they see on television. They don't experience anything for themselves. They don't touch the world. They don't feel the air on their face. They sit in these living rooms and they're obsessing on what Chris Cuomo was saying on CNN and taking it for, you know what I mean?
Cuomo.
Yeah, it's just it's terrible.
And their excuse and because they don't think that they have their own thinking mind.
Right.
The gift of thought that we all have we all have this thinking mind. It's an instrument that if we use properly, just like any instrument, any machine, whether it's your car or whatever it is whatever tools you use to get through life, they don't think that they have the power within them for whatever reason.
Right.
Right. And that's where it comes down to the inside out understanding of who we are and how we trudge along through life. And
But Sam, full circle, buddy.
A family friend that did just full circle,
right? Yeah. Full circle. It's thoughts it's all thoughts in the 100%. Brain. It's what if you're listening to your message, Sam, which is listen. You are your thoughts. Clear your mind. Remember, you are your thoughts, and then you have another outlet that's telling you, listen, panic, chaos, hide, don't leave the house. It's dangerous outside. Don't right. It's these two completely polar opposite messages. And if you get consumed by that, you become scared, you become frail, and then you lock yourself up in this imaginary box, right? That doesn't exist.
That's right. And it's a great metaphor for thought and thinking, because the auto tragic news is exactly the same. Because look, for-profit news outlets, they know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
They know how to tap in. They know how to make people feel scared, because when people are scared, they make impulse buys. So they have advertisers that play along and that play that fuel that game. And so, but the same thing goes along. If you know that your mind goes to those places anyways, all of our minds do. Our brain is engineered to keep us safe, and engineered to be negative, and engineered to focus on fear.
Yes, protect.
What you need
protect.
To do to protect yourself. I never know. Protect.
Right. When's that saber-toothed tiger going to jump on me and eat me? Right. Like, what am I? Right. That instinct.
If you don't do this, then this is going to happen to you.
Right.
100%.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's like, I remember I talk about this, and I just finished recording episode number 23, and I talk about what is true. Is the name of the episode.
Let's get a little exclusive on the Bobby Kudo show. Exclusive.
Right? Exclusive. I'm not going to give it away, but it's about what is really true, right?
Yep.
Is what is your current ramped up, scared thinking true? Is what's on CNN true? Is what the CDC is telling us is true? I mean, this is an example, and I'm not going to go all political. Growing up, all of us, every one of us, we grew up saying, you need to do this or there's a consequence. You need to brush your teeth twice a day.
Yep.
If you don't brush your teeth are going to rot.
Yep.
Well, yeah, maybe some of that's true. Maybe. Does that mean my teeth are going to rot right now? Or my teeth are going to rot tomorrow?
Right.
I don't know. It doesn't mean they're going to rot.
Right.
It's like the CDC with the hand washing. They for the first 6-7 months, hand wash your
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Clean everything. Clean
your
countertop.
Yeah.
You got to clean the door handles 5 times a day, whatever it was.
Yep.
And then I just read the CDC saying that's not effective.
Right.
So what is true really depends on the level of thinking we are, right? The level of thinking that people have right now in this moment.
Yep.
And the degree to which they can see that if the thinking is ramped up, you shouldn't believe it.
Right.
You should just wait till that thinking calms down, and then you can see what is true.
Because you're making irrational decisions, impulse,
and you're not being able to see the forest from the trees. It's like a cloudy windshield. It's like a fog. It's like condensation on a windshield or ice on a windshield.
Yep.
You wouldn't drive your car with a foggy windshield or condensation.
Right.
You would clean it off.
Right.
That's what happened. When our thinking goes sideways. And it's fueled by what we just turned on the TV about all the bad things that are happening. It doesn't allow the defogger or to remove the condensation from our cognitive windshield.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Great analogy.
When you get balanced and settled, then you can really see what is true for yourself.
Right.
With anything.
Right.
And then that is not a skill. It's built into every one of you, ladies and gentlemen.
Just got to find
built
it.
in.
Just got to find it. You got to find the button. There's a button.
Right there.
There's the button.
Right there.
Yes, it's right there. It's like
right
finding that hidden feature on your phone or your watch that you didn't know was there. And once you find it, you never forget where it's at. Sam, we're an hour and a half into the show. Listen, real quick, buddy. If you wanted to deliver a message today to the audience, what's the message today, man? What's today's message?
When you get quiet, when you're able to see what being quiet really is in the moment, you're able to see all the possibility in your life. You're able to see the inner resilience within you. You're able to see the hope within you. You're able to find your next step in that quiet space. And when you get busy, you get in your head, Don't believe the hype. It's just thinking. That's all it is.
Beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I love, you know what? I hate to say it, but it's the beauty and the simplicity of it. Like, it's just...
Because it is simple.
Right?
It is simple.
Right?
Our brain makes things complicated. Our brain likes to make things
I don't need to go to
complicated.
school. I don't need any special tools. I don't have to go to the store and buy anything. I literally just have to take that information, process it, and live it. Really, that's what it is.
The more we live by the seat of our pants. I'm not saying being irresponsible and run up credit card bills and not working. I'm talking about you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, right.
But you
got to
do. But you can do but you can work hard and make a good living and still be present. Because the more you're present, the less you suffer.
You know what I find, Sam, in my age, that whether I do something angry or happy, I still have to do it either way. So the choice is mine.
You might as well do it.
Right. My anger never made any situation better, if that makes sense. My thought process in taking a situation and processing it and saying, you know what, this is how I'm going to deal with this, as opposed to losing my top and being angry at forces that which I have no control over. To me, that's insanity. Right? I mean, right? That's the right.
But we think we do.
Right.
In that moment, we think the more we raise our voice, the more we get our point down. And this person did this to me, and they're,
like we
all yell at the TV once in a while. I mean,
I'm mad at the toothpaste, right? In the morning, I'm taking the cap off the toothpaste, and the cap falls, and it falls in the sink, and I'm mad. I'm mad because the cap fell in the sink. Uncontrollable, like nonsensical thinking.
But it's okay to let yourself off the hook when we all have those moments when we lose our shit.
Right.
And the greatest gift of consciousness and of presence is when we have those. It's okay to have those moments. Like I had a friend that had road rage. Nothing happened. He just got really angry. Someone cut him off.
Yeah.
And he's like, holy shit, I'm like this. And he's a coach. He's like, he helps lots of people.
Right,
and he's like
right.
He's very, very heart-centered and he's very chill.
Yep.
That's going to happen again.
Exactly.
Hopefully I don't do it. I kind of see it.
But
I can see it more. Maybe I'll be less.
There you go.
We're going to have those
conscious
moments.
of that. Yeah. But being conscious of those moments.
There's no program,
Right.
It's
right.
The three principles that I've been talking about on my podcast and you and I have been talking about.
Yep.
It's not a tutorial. It's not how to live. It's how mind works.
Yes.
It's how you work. Every one of you listening to this podcast right now. It's just showing you how you work. Okay. And how you work is sometimes you're going to be angry and sometimes you're going to be sad and that's okay. But if you try to control it and you try to, not be who you are, then it just makes it louder. It makes noise in your head louder. Just allow yourself to be who you are and see your frailties for what they are. Okay.
Perfect.
And when you're calm, you see what's possible.
It's perfect.
I think we should. And
I love it. And you know what? I couldn't say it better myself, Sam. And I want to take a quick second and say thank you so very much. I know that we were going to record yesterday, and you were just so graciously, willing to change the date, and we were able to get together today and record. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful for our friendship. I'm grateful for our communication.
Yes.
I appreciate your Instagram, man. I appreciate your Facebook. Every day there's a little bit of light in those media outlets for me. So I'm very grateful to that, man. I want you to know that
it's a pleasure to be here, man.
You might not have one single person out there that's listening to you. I can tell you that this guy right here, this person, me, this one person, for me, I always say it in the podcast, if I'm reaching one person, then I'm winning. To me, I feel like I'm winning. I want you to know you have reached me, and I am grateful for you, sir. And I thank you so much for joining me on this journey. And I won't even call this, look, I appreciate you being a part of this duet. I like to call this a duet. I don't want, no co-host,
it's
right. This is a duet, and I'm only looking forward to the next one, brother.
It was supposed to happen. This was divinely timed.
I agree.
I feel so grateful to be on your podcast. I tell my friends about your podcast. Yeah. I tell everyone about your podcast, and I just want you to know that you positively impact people.
Thank you, man.
I hear your passion. I feel your passion, and you need to keep doing it and keep doing this until God grabs the microphone out of your hands.
That's it, man. And I will.
The thing.
And I will. And I'll take it with me wherever I end up, brother. I'm taking it with me wherever I go. It's not going to go.
That's right. We're going to be buried with the microphone.
Yeah. So real quick, anybody listen, just walking us out of here, samledconsulting.com. Please go give Sam a heads up on his website. Everything is there, Sam. There's a link to your book there. You got the blog, the links to your podcast, testimonials, all of your contact information is there as well. Instagram, I mentioned it before. Facebook Facebook as well. You're not a Twitter fan, right? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm bailing on Twitter, man. I'm out. I'm being dead serious. I'm all done with Twitter. Yeah. I'm not.
I just, my attention span is, my attention span, ADHD. I can't. It's
between the two of us.
At some point,
I've always used the excuse that Twitter to me was an outlet of marketing for the show. But I'm going to be honest with you. Some marketing is not worth it. I don't even know that I want to be a part of that arena anymore. Twitter has become such poison. It's all it is people spitting poison at one another. They're spewing venom. And I don't want to be a part of that anymore. Like I'm just going to excuse myself. I think that I have a loyal audience. I think we have a loyal fan base, and I think I'm past it. I don't need it anymore. You know what I mean? And Facebook, Facebook is right on the tails as well. I'm getting to a point where the social media has gotten so poisoned that I'm choosing to, if I'm going to deliver a message, I don't want it to be in that kind of platform. I'm just kind of really just getting away from it. I think that, we've developed something here, and I think people are already listening, and it's going to me, I want the show to grow on its own merit and not be forced by some entity that I don't believe in. So
some algorithm.
It's
interesting. I was just having this conversation with the social media person that's helping grow engagement through whatever. She's a millennial. I don't know what she does, but
right.
Some buttons here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and you got to be true. You got to be true to your voice.
Yeah, man.
My friend, you're true to your
Thank you,
to your
sir.
voice.
And I feel the same about you, man.
It's heart-centered.
Yep.
And I'm just blessed to be on this podcast. And
I'm blessed to have you here, my friend.
And I look forward to let's do it again, man.
Me too. Absolutely. So everybody, Sam, thank you so very much.
Hour and a half goes by too quick.
Yeah, right. It really does. And that's love coming from Santa Barbara, California right there, man. I can see the sun shining behind you. It looks beautiful there. It looks absolutely beautiful. Sam, thank you so much for being on the show. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. Make sure you go over to Apple. Hey, listen, Sam and I are available on every single platform. Pick one, anyone. And we're available on all your favorite platforms. Go over to Apple. Go subscribe to the show. Go give us a review. Again, both of us, we're hungry for sponsorship. We're looking for the right sponsorship, but that's never going to happen if we don't hear from you. And and just to mirror your words, Sam, the greatest compliment that we can receive as podcasters is the gift of referral. The fact that you would offer us to a family member, to a friend, or just someone that you run into and say, hey, you know what? I think this could help you, and we're very, very grateful for that. With that said, Sam, thank you very much.
I always say at the end of my podcast, this podcast is made possible by all of you guys. So please comment, like, and subscribe. Bobby Kudo's show, and of course the Fearless Now. And it's just an honor to serve my listeners. I don't know.
I'm with you, man. Yeah, I love that. It's beautiful right there. That is absolutely beautiful. It is honor to serve our listeners. And with that said, everyone, thank you so very much for being here. Always remember that all roads lead here.
Amen.